Hi everyone, morning. My name is Wilfred. I work for Wilfred Innovation Labs in Bangalore. So I've been in Drupal for 7-8 years, and it's my first Drupal camp that we in person. So really excited about this opportunity. I would like to thank Drupal Association India for giving me this wonderful platform. Without further ado, let's get started about Drupal Decoupled lessons. So, the 4-5 months I've been, working on a decoupled implementation. It's something since then been really close to my heart. So I wanted to share all those knowledge that I've learned. So in case if someone's trying to wrap their head around decoupled, probably they can this session with me. Okay, so let's take a look at these set of requirements. So there are two sections here: design and functional. So on the design, the customers. So let's consider this as a typical revamp. On the design side, the customer is looking for some futuristic and functional looking feel with mobile-first approach and responsive design. It should be a customer-friendly with atomic design pattern, with accessibility. The components should be reusable. And also on the functional side, they are trying to improve their content authoring experience, create once published everywhere feature, highly available and highly secure MFA, improving their existing SEOs, seamless third-party integrations. So let's analyze this and let's break it down and get their current pain points. So with those set of requirements, I broke it down to 5 major pain points. One, the current website, which is kind of old school, with not that much good customer experience and content authoring experience. The performance is a bit poor. Also, you can improve the SEO on their existing site. What's the actual ask here? So they are expecting their new platform to be in a futuristic, having a futuristic solution with best practices, and it's highly available. It should require an omni-channel experience with seamless integration. The components should be reusable, and also it should be a customer friendly. They are targeting some set of new customers. For these kinds of requirements, we have, we should come up with a solution which should improve their customer experience. And basically, there are 3 pointers here. One, increasing the confidence, bridging the gap, and lead by innovation. So, increasing confidence includes improving the existing website, improving the visual and feel. Then comes bridging the gap. That can be done through set of research, learning a bit of their branding, and then finally comes with innovation, where we can take radical solutions, building their existing site with next-gen digital platform, if I may say so. And the technology considerations here, it should be having highly scalability with consistent UX across all platforms. It should have a multi-channel content delivery capabilities. It should have maximum reuse with API-first approach, and also in future, if there is any redesign, the cost should be very minimal. So when we consider all these aspects, the decoupled Drupal is a very good fit into with all these requirements. So let's jump into basically what is a decoupled system. So I'm sure everyone here have already seen this diagram, but it feels like a decoupled session is incomplete without this, basically going through this. So let me quickly go through this. On the left, we have the monolithic, the traditional one, where the front end and the back end is tightly coupled. The front end, it's in, you have your own set of themes defined. Drupal presentation layer takes care of that. And then on the right side, there is your consumer or the front end, which is different, or which is not tightly coupled with your CMS. And the gap is bridged with web services like JSON or GraphQL or REST. So the idea here is to have your decoupled CMS, rather decoupled Drupal as a nucleus, and then you have all this n number of consumers which revolve around this decoupled CMS. It can range from a simple static website to even a smart mobile. So when we go with a decoupled implementation, does it really mean that you can't leverage your Drupal presentation layer? And the answer is no, you can't really use the Drupal presentation layer. Why is because the idea here is to give more power and control to the front end folks. The front end folks are good at innovation, so we are just letting them do what they do best. So what if the customer still requires Drupal presentation layer, right? What if they require both the capabilities? They want the set of dynamic plugins to be decoupled, as well as they want all this to be rendered through the Drupal presentation layer. So there is this new character getting introduced, hybrid, also known as progressive decoupled. So in this case, you can leverage Drupal's presentation layer, number one, and also you have the ability to plug in those set of dynamic components into your Drupal presentation layer. So in that case, both our front-end developer as well as the content editor they're all happy. Now in this case, can I use my custom theme? Yes, I can use, and in fact, more than custom theme, I can use a lot more than that. I can rely on Drupal to render my pages. The decoupled dynamic elements will be also there. I can leverage the pipe and also offload some front-end rendering. So now I've talked about the decoupled as well as progressive decoupled. Right? So most of the time when we explain this to a customer, 90% of them are confused in which route to take. So what we do typically in those situations, those scenarios, is explaining or teaching them how to make a decision based on this chart. This is a chart which Dries has put up. So the idea here is to get to know from the customer what is their requirements, to which there are two things here. One, the editorial needs, and the other one, the developer needs, right? So you have to get from the customer which side are they aligning towards. If they just require the editorial needs, for example, and they're not too much worried about their design and everything. So in that case, you don't even need to have a decoupled app. You can even go with a traditional one in that case. Whereas on the other hand, if the customer is very peculiar about the, the developer needs, the front end, the fancy stuff that they want to build. In that case, it's a no-brainer to go with a fully decoupled app. And there is this middle one where they want both of them, right? So always go with the progressive decoupled in that case. So when we talk about decoupled implementation, it's also important to explain or talk about the web services, right? So in this table we have three web services: JSON, REST, and GraphQL. And it's clearly visible that JSON API has a clear edge when we compare that with REST and GraphQL. So going forward, I'll be talking more about JSON API. So now that we have got a basic introduction of what is decoupled, right? So let's jump into the takeaways. What I have. So decoupled architecture is great, but there are some catches. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's a process reward. You always need to have a balance with the editor versus the front-end developer experience. We all listened to Breeze mentioning about the other day when he mentioned about why Drupal has the edge when it compares to other headless CMS. We still require the content editorial experience. In most of the cases, in most of the decoupled implementation, the customer tends to ignore that part, but it's up to us. We have to educate them. We have to tell them this is also equally important as your front end. The other one is now that when we go with the decoupled implementation, the front end has got all the power. It is independent of the backend. So that also means the front end should be ready to build a lot of stuff which Drupal provides out of the box. So when you go with a decoupled, some of the features are getting you won't be able to leverage that full features which Drupal provides. So probably there is a case where front end has to implement those features. So you should be always planning for that. It's always good to take a progressive decoupled route if you want to preserve Drupal's standard feature. And always consider JSON API for a good API design. So the next one here is ask a lot of questions, irrespective of what the project is, whether it's a decoupled or a traditional one. It's always nice to keep asking questions to the customer. There is a lot of buzz happening on the front end side, especially with the decoupled project. Everyone's giving too many feedbacks about how this page should be looking like, how this component should be like. It's equally important to gather the backend requirements as well. So we also have to document those Drupal architecture, and so the tool that we use is Drupal spec tool. It's an open source tool, Google Sheet actually, where you can note down everything, starting with your Drupal fields to your custom entity type. So anything that's going to be created in Drupal should be added to this Drupal spec tool religiously, and it will be beneficial for our reference later on. So the other one here is front-end design is not equal to backend structure. So never create a backend structure based on a front-end design. Something that we, even though we try not to do that, we sometimes end up doing that. Okay. So few examples are, one of model window where the content doesn't even get updated that way. So it's not a question of can we do it. We can always keep on adding paragraph types or block types or whatever. But the question is, do we even have to add that in Drupal if it's not getting updated? Let the front end handle that. Right? The other examples are set of SVGs, bootstrap icons. There's no need to create a extra media, field for this uploading this SVGs. Can always be handled through the front end. The other part here is when you're going with a decoupled approach, always be ready to, compromise on a lot of features. Actually, I had a couple of more pointers added to this to the original slide, but I got to know very recently that we have this layout builder, decoupled layout builder modules, which is really cool. I didn't explore much on that, and also this in-place editing. So the other pointers here: sitemap, clean URLs, accessibility, caching, input sanitization. It's not compromising. We'll have to create these features, or we'll have to replace this with something new, which Drupal already provides. So get familiarized with decoupled router. So what happened is when I started working on a decoupled project, I thought that when I access node/page/node.ls, I'll get the whole JSON package. But that's not the case. I later on got to know you'll have to pass the entity, that's the UUID. Without that, you won't be getting the JSON response. So this module, it provides a new route where you can pass your node.ls and you'll get the UUID from that. So that's a cool module. The other cool module here is sub-request. So what this does is, instead of multiple client-side, client-server round-trip callbacks, it's never suggested to do multiple callbacks, especially if one callback is waiting for another callback. It will get a serious implication on the performance itself. So what this module provides is it gets all this request as one, and then it returns back as a single response. So there is this example blueprint that I have attached on the right. I'm not sure if that's big enough for you to take a look at that, but the idea is so the set of requests. Let's take the case of adding an article, and let's say that article has a tag reference, right? So when this article gets created, you first need to know what's the tag, what's the ID of that. So the request one contains, creating the taxonomy term, and the request two will be the actual node creation. And if you notice, we have this wait for key, which is waiting for the request one. So in this case, you can, this is a very simple example. So let's say we have 6 entity reference fields in a article, right? So we are talking about serious performance implications here. So this aggregates all this into one request and then returns back in a single response. Module here is JSON API Extras. So I saved a lot of time with this model by using this module. It's actually a Swiss knife. You have got lots of features here. Enable or disabling the routes which are not required. Overwriting, even the path or the name of the resource. Field, adding a field element, so disabling the fields which are not needed. Field enhancers. I'll be talking about field enhancers in the coming slides. So these are some of the cool features of JSON API Extras. JSON API default is actually a submodule of JSON API Extras. So what this module provides is it provides a default set of you will have the ability to add default includes and filters. It has a configuration form for each resource where you can include any reference field to that particular resource. So on the left side, what you can see is the JSON API of a basic page, which has a entity reference, a term reference field. So if you compare that with the right side, you have to, in order to get the term object, you'll have to include the field as a query. So there is a catch here. So usually this will be useful for a, let's say, a detailed page, right? But for a, let's say, if there is a landing page which will have a list of articles, those lists need not be, you need not give a whole set of fields on that JSON API. You just need mainly a title or a description, right? So in that case, it's always better for the front end app to include the set of fields which are only required. So the other one here I want to share is the front end developer already has got a lot of stuff to do. So as a backend developer, it's our job to make their job easy. So these pointers here, field enhancers, adding a computed fields, JSON API. Most of the time, we get a request from front-end developers saying, "Hey, can you modify this particular JSON? Can you add a particular object? Can you, just make some slight changes on this API?" All those. So, field enhancers is a right way to do that. This is a plugin which is provided by JSON API Extra module. You can create your own plugin and you can add that field enhancer to your specific field on a specific resource. Computed fields is another way of handling that. Let's say you have a very complex calculation which you have to add it along with your JSON API response. Right? So we can create a computed field, and that will be always a part of your JSON response. JSON API includes, I have this example here. So what it does is, it includes your embedded fields into the main object, the main data object. On the left side, you can see your taxonomy term is added inside. It contains inside your data object, right? But on the other hand, on the right side, if you don't add the JSON API includes parameter, you won't get that you will get the taxonomy term, but it will be in a separate object, and it's sometimes frustrating for your front end that you prefer. So coming into authentication mechanism, there's always this cookie-based authentication, right? But when we talk about decoupled implementation, cookie-based authentication is not. It doesn't really work. Point number one is we don't even know whether our consumer supports cookie, and the other thing is we are definitely sure that the front end and the back end won't be missing. So cookie-based authentication is good for a traditional approach, but for a decoupled approach, we'll have to go with the token-based authentication. So the two good features of token-based authentication is can be scoped, and also it can be expired. It can be having a very less expiration time. So in case if somebody gets the token, it will be valid only for the few minutes. You should always go with OAuth 2. So the idea here is to get the source only if there is a valid access to it. The front-end app, you will have a client ID and a client secret. So if the front-end app passes this client ID and secret, the OAuth 2 validates that, and it returns an access token. Any subsequent request from a front-end will have this. Only if that token is valid, you will get a response from the server. So this is a very high-level explanation. It does not more than that. So it's always good to go with OAuth 2 if there is any post request. So the next one is about preview. Here, let's admit it. Everyone wants preview, right? We love it. In decoupled implementation, we love to hate it, but still, everybody needs preview. So the problem here is in a decoupled implementation, there is no concept of page. The page is something on the front end, and there can be a chance if you're doing a preview, you're again coupling this front end back to Drupal. But there are ways if you can have a preview for each consumer. If you have that capability, then it will be possible. So there is this decoupled preview links module which provides exactly that. You can have your preview per consumer. If you just give your consumer one consumer two's base URL along with a few parameters, you will get a preview even before you publish the pages. Consumer image style. So consumer image style is useful when let's say you have some 10 set of image styles that you have defined, and your consumer one only uses 2 out of them. So you always have this option to select what image styles is required for a consumer. So this consumer image style is a module we use. So security implications are there. It's always better to reduce the attack surface. So one way of doing that is disabling the unwanted endpoints. If you never require set of endpoints to be exposed, always disable that. JSON API Extra module provides that. The other way is to add an internal flag when you create a custom entity type, so that the resource won't be, if you don't want that to be available, exposed outside, you can always add that flag. You can also use a reverse proxy like database API gateway. So the actual JSON endpoint is not available or not there for the public. So some common design and development gotchas are, you should always, let the designers and developers collaborate at a very initial stage, so that there is no such sudden surprises. Right? And always be prepared for pivots. It's always there. You should always have a plan for that. Always know your standards and stick to them. It's most of the customers, it's up to us to educate them what is what's the standard, and we should always stick to that. Always look for a real content example in case of even a wireframe, right? It's when you start implementing that, it's always better to add the exact content and then write out. Yeah, so that's about it. Any questions?
Awesome. Do we have any questions for Wilfred?
Yes.
So hi Wilfred. Yeah, I have a one quick question. So when we are using a decoupled architecture, right? So how we can handle the SEO when we are having a decoupled application?
That's a good question, and that's where I have also mentioned there are some things which won't be working out of the box, but yeah, you can handle SEO. For example, if you're talking about meta tags, there is an option. The default set of tags which Drupal provides, you can still add those. What I noticed is the field meta tags doesn't have all those information. So I would, in that case, go with a computed field, right? In that case, you add a computed field and then get all the required meta tags for a particular node, and then expose that. If you are talking about sitemap, I didn't find. I didn't get a solution till now. I was checking that the other day. So we tried with this external sitemap generator, like a Google sitemap generator or a site improved, but there's no concrete evidence on that.
So, William, here's a question: how we can make sure the website is crawled by Facebook or Twitter's? So there's no meta as Facebook, Google, Facebook or Twitter once they crawl our pages.
Yeah. So in a normal implementation, we go with robots text. So that's the exact reason.
I mean to say like OG images, like we have to show OG tags.
Correct.
And same for the Twitters. Will that possible with the decoupled architecture, or?
It is possible. So if you you always have that set of fields. So your meta tag module provides that OG tags. The question is whether you can expose that in your JSON. So that's where there is a meta tag function where you can get all those OG tags and then add that in your computed field. You can define a computed field for an entity, and then you can expose all that.
No, that's fine. But once we don't call any API, and how the initially Facebook and Twitter will crawl those pages? There's no method unless we crawl. And Facebook, Twitter don't call any API, our web server API, and we don't have anything on the first hand.
Yeah, it's The OG tags are there, the Twitter tags, the Facebook tags are there, but we'll really have to check that out. I mean, like I said before, there are some implications when we go with decoupled approach. We'll have to plan that out accordingly. There will be some roadblocks.
Like so one way could be like so when we are loading the page for the first time for the initial load, so one approach could be adding all those meta information like which
call the API and
right. So that way, suppose if any other third party crawler references our website, so they can at least see the metadata, right, and then probably get some data out of it. So that's one way to do it, but again we will have to see how much impact does it has on performance or all these things. But I don't think that would be much of an issue on the performance. But as far as the OG things are concerned, I think if we can add metadata right in the very first page load, then I think we can have some sort of the behavior that we want.
But that will not be dynamic, right? So at the first load, we can pass a static and at the page changes, we cannot pass. And there's no API call while Facebook or Twitter crawled. Yeah, so there's a limitation, basically, we can say. So thanks for this.
Thank you, Wilfred.